It was contrast after contrast, from Iran and the hospitality, and it was all about the people. We didn't really have time to look at the landscape because we were hosted by so many kind people. Then we've been from that to the desert, where it was not about people because we were alone, and it was only about going through this desert and finding our limits, our mental limits.
And we just arrived in the middle of nowhere with only camels and us and all this sand everywhere and this huge straight line. We're like, oh my god, that will be different from Iran. And yeah, we're like, okay, so let's hit the road.
It's very inspiring when you are cycling. You realize like this world is made of so many different landscape and things you are going through, and you really feel like you are moving forward, you are discovering the world. You are really like going from a certain setup to another setup it's beautiful.
Welcome to the Seek Travel Ride podcast, where we share the stories and experiences of people who have undertaken amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners. Hello, I'm your host, Bella Malloy, and I'm excited to introduce my guest for today's episode of the Seek Travel Ride podcast, Roxy and Tommy. In April of 2022, these two intrepid adventurers set off from the French Alps on a mammoth bicycle tour. Their destination is Australia, and so far they have made their way from Western Europe through the Balkans, Turkey, Iran, and Central Asia. Recently, they've arrived in Southeast Asia, and I'm fortunate enough to be speaking with them today from Laos. I'm really looking forward to hearing about their experiences from their travels so far and what's to come on the road ahead. Roxy and Tommy, welcome to the show.
Hey, hello Bella, hello everyone.
Hello Bella, thank you so much for having us. We are super excited to tell our story.
Oh, I can't wait to hear the stories and tales and experiences that you're going to share with me during this interview with you both. I'm really, really buzzing and excited. But a question which I like to ask all of my guests on the show is, can you remember the very first bike you ever rode? So, Roxy, you go first.
So actually, while listening to your podcast, I was like, oh my god, I don't remember. So I had to ask my mom about it. And actually, thanks to your podcast, I've learned that I was keen on riding a bicycle, and I was so happy to learn that because I wasn't even aware. So I asked my mother, she was like, yeah, you really liked riding your bike when you were 5-6 years old. So I was so happy. I don't really remember the bike or anything like that, but at least I know that I had a bike and I like riding it, and yeah.
What about you, Tommy? What do you remember?
On my side, as often, the memories I've got about like the first bike ride I had was through a picture there is at my grandparents' place, where we are the 9 cousins of the family, all of different ages, and we all had a bike at one point when we did a family reunion, and they did this picture where you go from the taller one to the smaller one, and we are the 9 of us all riding bikes side to side, and that's definitely the first memory I have about riding bikes back then. Yeah.
That is so awesome. It was like your own little mini family peloton there, Tommy.
Yes.
I'd love to know, can you remember where you came in the height order of that peloton? Were you one of the smallest in the photos, or were you in the middle, or where were you?
No. I think I was middle top. Yeah, on the picture, I'm not the tallest one, but I'm like on the top of the peloton, the head of the peloton.
I bet he must have been the smallest.
From being 2 happy children riding bikes when you were small to where 2 wheels have taken you now across the world, can you please quickly just introduce yourselves to our listeners and give them a little insight into your trip so far?
Well, yeah, so myself, I'm Tommy, so I'm 28 years old, and I was raised in the French Alps. And now, cycling full-time now since 1 year, exactly, 1 year.
Hello, everyone. I am Roxy, raised and born in Poland, 29 years old today.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. No worries.
Joyeux anniversaire!
Oh, merci. So yeah, I was born and raised in Poland. I studied in Poland, and then I moved to France to do an Erasmus program, and I met this guy. I fell in love, and then I decided to stay in France. Well, I used to be in France, but right now I'm just a bicycle traveler. But otherwise, yeah, I continue my life in France.
And regarding of our trip, so far it's gonna be a year in 3 days. It's gonna be a year on the roads, and we cycled close to 13,000 kilometers through 18 countries.
Yes, we are right now in the northern part of Laos, in our 18th country. And yeah, so far it's been almost 1 year. Like in 3 days sharp, it will be 1 year.
To set off on an adventure that will cross over into another year is one thing, but I can only just imagine, when you set off on that first day, did you ever in your mind think of where are we going to be in a year? Or like, that's just an incredible thing to be saying out loud. In 3 days, we will have been travelling for a whole entire year through 18 countries and 13,000 kilometres.
Well, for me, actually, I was pretty nervous the first day. I remember, because I was like, oh my God, it's happening to me again. I'm leaving my second home country, which is France. And before I left Poland, I was like, oh no, where am I going? Is it for real? Is it like, I was pretty nervous. I don't know. I wasn't aware that it's happening for real. And I was like, oh, I must have forgotten something. It's very hard to realize that you're actually going for such a long adventure. So yeah, my point of view, it was pretty big.
Yeah, the thing is as well, like when we left the French Alps, we didn't set a time frame. Basically, we didn't really had any due date where we would have to be somewhere. I mean, we knew we needed to be in Kyrgyzstan for the winter. That was kind of planned since the beginning. But except of that, yeah, we have no arrival date in Australia, which is our final destination. And yeah, I mean, we knew it would be maybe a year, maybe a bit more than a year. We'll see. And we still don't know, actually. We still don't know.
That's the best part of it.
That's what makes this really a bigger adventure, isn't it? Just the unknown, not knowing what's going to come from day to day, tomorrow, the end of the week, the end of the month to another year. Wow, I love this part of your trip so much. Are you going to be celebrating a year on the road in any special way?
Yes, that's what we plan to do. But the thing is, I mean, we'll see where we'll be in 3 days. That's the same as planning the whole trip. We just try to focus on pedaling going forward, and we'll see where we are on this particular day and what we can do in this place. But there are high chances that we'll be in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Laos. So yeah, we'll see from there, I guess.
But we are so lucky that here in Laos, they are huge fans of beer. So at least we are sure that we will manage to find good cold beer Lao to celebrate it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Awesome, Santé! That's brilliant. I love it. Now, this, if I'm not incorrect, is your first bicycle tour, big bicycle tour at that. But you're both lovers of the outdoors and adventurers in the outdoors aside from cycling. I would call you, before this trip, if someone was to say you both had a passion for mountaineering, that would probably be correct, wouldn't it?
Yes, definitely. As on my side, as I was raised in the Alps, I mean, the only real thing to do on the weekends is mountain adventures. So both in winter and in summer, I was outside all the time for mountaineering, for ice climbing, for everything. And then when we met with Roxy, we straight headed for the mountains and did a lot of adventure. And we didn't do much cycling because, as you know, in the mountains, the roads are not very easy to practice. It's either you want to go hard and do like big climbs, big passes, but otherwise you have no real flat sections around. So yeah, we didn't do any biking at all, and we had to. So that's why we bought the bikes actually for this trip. Before that, we had no bikes.
Yeah, we have never done bicycle touring in our lives. I mean, there are so many other activities in the Alps that there was simply no time for biking.
I'd be interested then, like, I live in France, I live in the Pyrenees. The Pyrenees mountain range has my heart. And Tommy, I'm sure you and I could probably talk for hours over the differences between the Alps and the Pyrenees and why one may be better than the other. But to me, they're equally beautiful and amazing. Because obviously being outdoor adventurers, being into the mountaineering, whether it's in summer or in winter time, because I know you do a lot of ski touring and mountaineering of that type of nature as well. I wonder how much that residual fitness that you had, did it transfer over to the bike? There's something different about putting quite a heavy load on a bike, strapping all the panniers that you need, all the equipment you need for a world tour, and setting off. It's one thing to maybe ride like that from the shops with a shopping commute, but it's very different to all of a sudden be heading thousands of kilometres away. What's your fitness been like since you started this trip, and how did it go?
Well, yeah, that's true. Except maybe the ski touring, which make you work your legs, so you could think it would help you for bike touring. But I think it's more on the mental side of the challenge, like accepting a challenge and giving everything to reach your goal. That's what mountaineering or all those mountain sports teach you. And then when you start to cycle, you have this same goal, and you see it the same way as an adventure, and you see it's how to do something and to make it real and make it happen. But yeah, now after 1 year of cycling, we can definitely say that we are quite fit now, and with what we eat every day now in South Asia, which is mainly rice and vegetables, yeah, we are even fitter.
In shape.
Yeah, in shape, that's for sure.
I have to say, growing up in Australia, the cuisine of Southeast Asia was something that I grew up with and loved. We're lucky enough in Australia to have a choice of so many different restaurants with Southeast Asian cuisine. And I must say, my stomach is very envious of just not only the type of food you're eating, but the flavours and the aromas that come out in that type of cuisine as well. It's so much more of an amazing culinary experience than you will ever get from a packet or a jar in your local supermarket, that is for sure.
Yeah, totally agree.
Before we move into the bike trip, I do want to go into a little bit of your mountaineering stuff as well. Roxy, you love mountaineering too. What sort of adventures were you typically doing before this massive cycle tour?
So when I arrived in France, I've already done some skiing before, because I learned how to ski, but I didn't know anything about ski touring or ice climbing or mountaineering, alpinism, nothing at all. And actually Tommy taught me everything, and then I got completely addicted to it, and we started to go to the mountains practically every weekend, do all kinds of sports. So I bought myself all gear, like for ice climbing and for all the mountaineering. I completely fell off in mountain sport. So yeah, we would do literally everything from rock climbing to canyoning, alpinism, like literally everything. Just no cycling.
Yeah, but basically we started in the Alps at home, and slowly we started to do adventure abroad. So we first been to Mount Kenya in Africa, in East Africa. We climbed Mount Kenya, which is some climbing to reach the 5,200 meter top. That was 2 years ago. We've been to Kyrgyzstan to do some alpinism as well, and climb some Kyrgyz mountains as well. So yeah, once you are very set in France and you know how to do it and to do some mountaineering, then you can start to discover some part of the world.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, it's me, Bella from the show. I just wanted to let you know about something exciting. I have recently just created a new Facebook group named Seek Travel Ride, where if you are a fan of the show, you can join and we can actually bring this community more to life. It's a place where you can learn more about our guests, see more photos, chat about episodes in more detail, and maybe even pose some questions as well. It's also a place where you can share your own bicycle adventure journeys, whether you've got a photo or a blog or some videos that you want to share. Come online, say hi, join the Facebook group, and let's enjoy this community that we have built. We have a global audience here. People are listening from all around the world, and I think we can only thrive and get an even greater sense of wanderlust by sharing our experiences with each other and connecting. So get onto Facebook. I've provided a link in the show notes, and you can join that community as well. Thank you. Now back to the show. And I guess being based in the Alps, you just have the best playground to really sharpen your skills and to learn those skills in your case there, Roxy, as well. You do have some amazing alpine environment to go and adventure in and learn the techniques. And similar to cycling, it's something that once you learn it, you can take that skill into a natural environment in another country and explore the mountains there as well. Because a bit of a difference to the way that you're doing your tour is you did take some time off when you were actually in Kyrgyzstan in the wintertime to actually go and explore your other passion of mountaineering while you were there. And I just love that you've embraced that your trip hasn't just been about the bike, or it hasn't just been about getting from A to B and the landscape across the roadside, but also getting to a destination to really stop, slow travel and really explore the landscape and explore your other passion and mix it in with this adventure as well. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think just quickly off the bat, have there been days where you've been cycling in another destination where mountaineering wasn't part of what you had planned and then come across something unexpected that way and your mountaineering eyes have popped out of your head going, ooh, I wouldn't mind staying here to look at those mountains longer?
Yes, definitely. So actually, it happened in Turkey. In Turkey, while we were crossing the country for more than 1 month and a half. Then at the end of Turkey, basically few kilometers before the border with Iran, you've got the highest mountain of Turkey, Ararat Mountain, which is as well 5,100 meter high. And it's like those flat plateau, and then far away you could see like this massive mountain, like it's a volcano shaped mountain, so you could see it from very far away. And things that were like, oh yeah, we need to have a look there. We really need to. We can't just like cycle like on the side of it and just like take a picture and go. We need to see how we could go to the top of it.
We just couldn't resist. I mean, cycling in front of this huge mountain, we're like, oh come on, we just need to go on the top of this mountain to finish all that traversay of Turkey. Like, oh, it was pretty symbolic for us to finish by reaching the highest mountain in Turkey. So we're like, okay, so we are carrying with us big backpacks on our bicycles. We have trekking boots and we have winter equipment with us. So we're like, okay, so we are passing in the same city where the hike starts. So we're just like, yeah, let's do it.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. It just fills me with joy because I feel I've certainly travelled on different holidays before where the cyclist in me or the hiker in me has been intrigued and wanted to do things. I cast my mind back to a different life in Australia and travelling in the corporate world, being somewhere for work, but wishing I could be there with my bike or something similar. I love that this idea of this amazing, massive 5,000 metre plus peak on the horizon, just you're pedaling towards it. The benefits of travelling so slowly, you get to visually see what's ahead of you for so long. That can be a benefit or not a motivator sometimes, depending on how the wind's going in your face there. But the idea that you can be excited about, wow, I want to go up that mountain, that's amazing. You got to the top of the summit of Mount Ararat then?
Yes, we did. It took us like three days.
3 days. Yeah.
So it's 3 days hike, and finally at the end you've got like icy peak. So you get there, and it was. Then we could see very far. We could see Iran, we could see Armenia on one side, and we could see, of course, Turkey as far as the eye can see. And like all the way we came, we couldn't see as far as Istanbul, but like we could definitely like see the whole way we cycled like during weeks to get there.
Mind-blowing just to be in your shoes, because it doesn't matter how good your camera is or your drone is, or nothing takes away that visual feeling and that sort of experience that you have standing there. I've often found like photos and imagery never do a place justice that way sometimes. You've just got to be there to experience that. But the great thing I loved about that is you're standing in one spot seeing where you've come from, but you can also then see where you're about to go to. That's brilliant. So we've skipped across to Turkey, and I know we're going to get into these countries, but let's try and figure out and start from the beginning. Who came up with the idea to go to Australia on a bike and explore the world this way? Cycle touring wasn't part of what either of you did. Who came up with this idea, and what were the motivations for it?
Yeah, so it's a funny story because it begins in Kyrgyzstan, actually, when we first went to Kyrgyzstan 2 years ago. So we went there to do bicycle touring, 1 week of bicycle touring and 1 week of alpinism. So we basically go there, we rent 2 bicycles, then we did a tour around the Istiklal Lake after our 1 week of alpinism. And we met this French guy cycling from France to Kyrgyzstan. We crossed on our paths and we just stopped like to talk a bit, and he told us, yeah, so I'm cycling from France and it's been 3 months since I'm on the road. And we're like, wow, so it's been 3 months and you started in France. We felt so inspired, we were like, oh my god, so it's doable, we could do it as well. And we were like, yeah, okay. So we kept it in our minds, and then we got back to France, and yeah, we were keep living our lives. And actually it was our dream to go to do the work and travel program in Australia. So we were like, okay, so let's go to Australia to do the work and travel visa. And then we were like, okay, but
yeah, let's not do as everyone is doing, which is like take a plane and get to Australia, and like, I don't know, 10 hours later you leave the French airport, you are in Australia starting your work and travel visa. We're like, let's go there by bike. Let's try this way of traveling as well in the meantime. And yeah, get there or at least as far as possible with bicycle. And so far, yeah, I think we are pretty good.
Yeah, we didn't want to quit our jobs just to go work in Australia directly. We were like, okay, so let's do 1 year off, traveling towards Australia by bike, and then start working again.
So then, I guess, because you are taking that time away from your work, how do you fund a trip like this? And how do you come up with how much it will cost you to get to Australia?
So we worked for a couple of years back in France. We saved money for the trip, and then we had a lot of experiences about traveling, hitchhiking, or just like holidays. So we knew the budget we could fit in, like by sleeping in the tent, by cooking ourselves, the food, buying food in supermarkets. So we had a rough idea of the budget. And yeah, we knew that as we were going to Australia to do this work and travel visa, at the end, when we'll reach Australia, we'll be able to work and save more money. So we have a 10 euro per person budget per day. It's quite easy with 300 euro per month per person. Yeah, you can travel
for a long time.
Long time, yeah.
And I guess there you are camping, so you're wild camping many days, but I imagine also, are you utilising services like warm showers as well?
Yes, exactly. Warm shower and couch surfing. So we did a lot in Balkans, in Europe. Also in Turkey, it's pretty popular in Turkey.
Yeah, but we were also hosted. Yeah, we were also hosted a lot of times. Not only we don't only use warm shower. We were hosted by locals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, we were. As Roxy is speaking Russian, for all Central Asia, we managed to be invited by people to sleep at their places or sleep in their garden with the tent. And even in the Balkans, we managed a lot of time to just like meet people in the street and yeah, manage to know them and share dinner or share a lot of experiences.
One of the constant themes that comes whenever I've held an interview with guests who have done a trip similar to what you're undertaking at the moment as well is just that hospitality that greets you when you're traveling in this nature. Like, obviously, on the road with a bike heavy laden, I guess it sparks a type of curiosity in people, but the hospitality and warmth that strangers are received into these countries, and you get to have these amazing experiences. There was something actually, Roxy and Tommy, when I was watching one of your YouTube videos, and it's remiss of me, I've actually forgotten what country this was in. But what struck me was you were invited into someone's house. If you were to say these people didn't really have much at all, they had nothing, and you were saying you had unloaded all your luggage and equipment from your bikes, and you were like, it almost seems like we have more on our bikes than what these people have in their homes. That was really such a moment for me where you've encapsulated that. Often we hear stories of people with not much inviting you into their houses and stuff. And travelling in the way that you are, your bikes are heavy laden and they've got what you need to survive on the road in the way that you're travelling. But still, it's not really that much. But when you're in someone's house and you realise that your small belongings for this trip is more than what someone's had for their life, how does that strike you?
Yeah, it's. I think it was in Tajikistan. The video you're talking about. It was at the beginning of the Pamir Highway. So after we left the capital of Tajikistan, Dushanbe, we had to stop almost like after 2 days because of pouring rain. So we would found ourselves in a small village with nothing. I think we were the first tourists there, and it was pouring rain for the next 3 days. And there was this old guy like walking in the village, and we asked him, "Oh, so do you happen to know a place where we could stay for 2-3 nights, waiting for the sky to clears up?" And he was like, "Okay, come to my place." And in Central Asia, in a lot of Muslim houses, they often have empty room for guests, like to welcome guests. So yeah, it was the case, and he had this entire empty room filled with only pillows and blankets, and he was like, "Okay, you can stay in this room." He would make tea for us, prepare hot soup, and yeah, we were the first moment when we saw this room, we were like, "Oh my god, they have nothing. They have pillows, blankets." That was all in the room. And yeah, and they had like some utensils for cooking, and we started to unpack our bags, and yeah, we realized that we have way more than they have, and we have all our fancy stuff. We have our Helinox chairs, all the electronics. So yeah, for me it was a bit awkward, because we are traveling with all this equipment that we think it's necessary, it's irrelevant for us to survive, and they don't even have a half of it, and they live like this every day. So we're like, yeah, it was kind of...
Yeah, Tajikistan was one of the poorest country we've been through, but what struck me even more in Tajikistan is the capital, Dushanbe, which really looks like Las Vegas. It's like towers, like 100-meter towers. You've got fountains, you've got water everywhere. It shines. It's like monuments, very big monuments everywhere. I mean, you get there, you are like, wow, I'm in the United States, Las Vegas or a big city. And then you cycle out of the city, you do like 10 kilometers, and the people we were hosted at, they don't have running water, and you are like, wow, that's like the contrast is so strong between the capital city and suburbs of the city, or either all the villages around. So yeah, that was shocking.
Would be such a real eye opener, but also a very humbling experience to sort of have as well. And like you said, being in a country with such extremes of lavish, luxury, but just out of those city lights, and it's such a different life that people are living day to day. It's cliche, the people who have the least offer the most.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly.
I guess then it's one thing to not be equipped with the bikes and then learn what you need and buy the bikes and buy the panniers and the gear that you need to undertake a trip like this. But how did you work out which route you would take? Like, how do you work out, I want to go to Australia, and to get there, I'm going to go here? Who was in charge of the route planning, and how did you figure it out?
Well, so we knew, as we were not big cyclists, we knew we wouldn't make it to Australia within a year. So then the problem you ask yourself is how to deal with the winter, because most of the time you can't really cycle in the winter when it's minus 30. So straight ahead, we say, okay, well, we are aiming for Kyrgyzstan before winter to get there before the snow, before the negative temperature. And then from there, we'll see our way south to Australia. But then by the time we started, the war in Ukraine already started. Then there were the COVID situation with some countries closed as well. So we didn't really plan. We knew we wanted to go through the Balkans rather than Bulgaria and Hungary. So we knew we wanted to go through the Balkans and then Turkey, of course. And then from there, we had the first big challenge with border, because Azerbaijan was closed and Turkmenistan as well was closed. So we couldn't reach Central Asia by land. So we said, okay, let's go there by cycling. And by the time we get there, we'll see. So that's what we did. Yeah, basically for the day-to-day planning, we use the apps we've got on our phones. And of course, we are very open when we meet other travelers, other people on the road. We are listening to their stories and what they recommend in terms of routes and things to see on the way, or not to see and not to go. So in both ways. And yeah, slowly we do our way all the way to Kyrgyzstan. That was the first step.
Yeah.
I remember reading an anecdote once that psychologically, the most joy we actually ever take from a holiday or a trip or a vacation is actually in the planning and anticipation stage. Now, when you're on a long cycle tour like this, you have the benefit of being able to anticipate for so many things along your trip as well. But before you set off, knowing where you were going to go broadly, were there things that you were especially looking forward to? There could be different places for both of you, but things that you were anticipating with joy to being able to experience yourselves.
Well, we like to say no expectation, no deception, so we try to not plan our road, not to expect anything from any country in order not to be deceived, because yeah, if you start to Google, oh, how is Montenegro, you go and Google, okay, Montenegro, you see all these beautiful mountains, oh, hospitality, all these little wooden cottages, then you arrive in Montenegro, it's pouring rain, and I don't know, something happens here, you are so disappointed. So I think we try to avoid to expect anything from every country. So
yeah, I mean, it's what we did since the beginning, and so far we are always positively surprised, like as Roxy was saying, like if you do too much research, then eventually you will end up on like some picture being photoshopped or whatever to sugarcoat it in a way. And then when you get there, you are expecting too much of something, of a place. And most of the time, yeah, you are disappointed. So for us, better to just go and see for ourselves. And most of the time we were like delighted to discover the country, the culture, anything. Yeah. So we are not looking forward especially to something. We are just looking forward for the adventure, for like living this adventure day to day. And we are very happy about it, to not have expected too much of anything.
No expectation, no deception. I love that. I've not heard it before, but I do like that there's, don't fill your mind with preconceptions about a place, so that when you experience, it's an authentic experience for you and with your own eyes, not with someone else's sort of perceived thoughts in there as well. So I guess on that track, and we've talked about Mount Ararat, what are places that were unexpected that just blew you away?
Well, I would say Iran blew us away. But the thing with Iran is that, so we know a lot of bicycle travelers who went to Iran and they were like, wow, oh my God, it's amazing. Hospitality is incredible. So it was for me, it was first time that I was expecting Iranian people to be welcoming for me. And I didn't want it to happen. And so that's where we realized that, okay, that's when we realized that, okay, so let's just do not expect anything and let's see how it flows. And yeah, well, Iran was incredible. The people, hospitality. Yeah, I'm just speechless. I don't know.
We found out that it was very hard to cycle tour in Iran because actually every kilometer you are stopped by someone. Literally every kilometer, either like on the side of the road, or he's driving, he park on the side, or he sees you, he wants to stop you, to offer you something, to talk to you, to invite you for dinner, to invite you to his house, to invite you to visit his city. So yeah, we do, I don't know how many kilometers we did in northwest Iran, but yeah, not many, because every day we were invited and we had to stay at someone. It was really, really beautiful memories now, but yeah, it was so funny. Like we stopped somewhere, the guy was like, oh, I need to show you around, tonight we do a dinner with all my family and you have to stay for one night. So we stayed for the night, and then the next day was like, oh, I want to show you the lake next by. So we went for the lake, and then it was like, oh no, but you need to stay because tonight there is something else in the city. So yeah, it was amazing. That was like, Iran really was the highlights of the journey so far. It was incredible.
So all Iranian people wanted to change our points of views of their country. They were all asking us, so what's your vision about Iran? What's your imagination? What do you think of our country? And the thing is that we didn't want to admit what we really know, like from Europe, So we're like, yeah, we don't know. And they wanted to do everything in their power to change our minds. Like, look, our country it's safe, we are very welcoming, look at our landscapes. They're like, yeah, so willing to change your point of view. That was crazy.
Beautiful.
A beautiful culture and hospitable culture. I've heard that from other people. In fact, I'm thinking now clearly of, I had an episode number 6 with Mark Gresser, and his experience in Iran blew him away. He said he felt like he was a member of a family there. I think anecdotally he said in the whole month of being in Iran, I think he only had to spend, $7 Australian.
Yeah.
Because everyone kept taking him in. Everyone kept throwing so much hospitality and generosity his way. And he found it a struggle to actually leave there because of that generosity. He left a family as if he was the son, and he had tears, and it really moved him. And I could feel that when he retold his story. It's interesting there because, Roxy, you were saying you don't want someone's preconceptions about a country. You don't want to think about Iran being hospitable. And you were warned about it, but it still blew you away.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the experiences that I imagine, and the moments that I imagine that this trip was intended for you to have as well. Like, you take a trip like this hoping to have experiences of these sort of nature that do just, wow, this is happening. The anecdote that you couldn't cycle too much because you were taken in and shown around, I love that too, which is great. And I guess is also aligned with the way that you travel, that you were flexible, that you don't have an end date. So if it is a case that someone wants to show you something and you're enjoying that time, you're open to having that experience, as opposed to being on a set schedule where you need to do this amount of kilometres day by day by day to get to this point. I love that flexibility that you've built into your trip.
Yes, definitely. And the thing, it was even more for Iran because we were in August in Iran. We knew that the next step of our journey was the crossing of the desert, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan deserts. We knew that if we wanted to cross it cycling, it's about 1,000 kilometers of desert. It would be better to wait as much as possible and to, cross it rather mid-September, late September, rather than end of August. So yeah, we were really not in a hurry. And Iran is really the perfect place if you are really not in a hurry. I mean, you can't visit Iran if you are in a hurry because the beauty of the country, even more than the landscapes, is definitely the hospitality, the Iranian people. It's amazing.
It's one of those places I've not been to, but really, really want to discover for myself. And I've said this to my guests. I think I say it to my guests before I record on every single session, is the beauty of what I do as hosting and listening to your stories and being able to share them is it fills me with wanderlust. And on the flip side, every time I press stop, it just makes me want to put panniers on my bike and experience places. But in having these conversations, Iran, Turkey, these are the places that are first on my list of where I want to go. Hi everyone, it's Bella here from the show. I just wanted to say a big appreciative thank you to every one of you who has reached out to me, whether it's via email, Twitter, Instagram, or on our Reddit community page. You've reached out to me to let me know how much you have enjoyed listening to the episodes of the show. Some of you have gotten in touch to see whether or not you can be interviewed as well. I really appreciate knowing that I'm creating something that is being enjoyed by you all, and I am excited to keep bringing this show to you. If you would like to leave me a rating and review in your podcast player app, that would be absolutely mega because it means that this show will continue to be pushed out to a wider audience. It blows my mind to think about the countries and the cities, the towns, the little villages that this show is being listened to. I really appreciate having you all there as my faithful listeners, and I am so excited to keep bringing these amazing interview stories to you each week. Okay, time to get back to the show. But this show is not about Bella and her future adventures. It is about Roxy and Tommy. So let's go back to your trip. And we've skipped all of Western Europe and much of the Balkans already, and I don't want to do that. Let's go back. Obviously, where you start in the French Alps. And I want to just actually take you back to day one, because starting in the French Alps, does that mean you're doing some big climbs? How did that go? And what were the climbs you were doing?
Yeah, so actually we had to wait because we wanted to go way earlier, like, 25 April. But the thing is, as we wanted to cross the Alps to get on the Italian side, you need to go through high passes, and normally passes opens in like mid-May or something, and there was this pass called the Monsny, Mosny Pass, which was opening the 1st May, and we had to call like 1 week before. Also, is the pass still opening this next week? And the lady on the phone, I remember we called the tourist office, and she told us, it's not true, because we had a lot of snow falling. And you're like, oh my god, so we would need to wait 1 week more, and we were already ready to leave. And then the day before, we called again the tourist office, and the lady said, yeah, it's opening tomorrow. We were like, wow, amazing. We were so happy, and we just went for our first pass. And
that was a bit hard actually, because as you said, maybe not the first day, but the second day we started the climb, and it took us like 2 full days to reach the pass. It was, we were loaded like crazy. We had so many things, because when you leave home you take everything, and then on the way you start to like give stuff or get rid of stuff. But we did the climb. The second day we started the climb, so we were very heavy, and we took us 2 full days to get to the border with Italy, and then hopefully get down to Italy. And then the good thing is we had to cross the whole plains of northern Italy, and that was way easier, because it's so flat, and we could like stretch our legs and start really cycling. But the first few days in France were very hard.
It was the hardest pass we have crossed so far. One of the hardest, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, our legs were not ready. That's for sure.
We weren't ready.
The Col de Montcenis, I because of my passion of cycling, I have been fortunate enough to ride some of the cycling cols in the Alps, but I have not ridden this one. But now you have me intrigued.
You need to go there.
Do I need to go there with a touring bike, though?
No.
For the real experience, right?
Yes. There is a trick about this path that we didn't know actually. It's when you reach the pass and you have like this big panel saying you made it, you are at the pass, ta-da-dam, and there is like
the end.
It's not the end, exactly. So we were so happy, we were celebrating, we were like, let's go Italy,
downhill,
and actually you have to go 100 meters of elevation, still like climbing on the side of the mountain before going down. So we did that at sunset, and we were like exhausted. We were like, we thought it was the end, we thought it was
and
the
100 meters you would say, oh, it's nothing, but yet it was huge for us, like the second day, or like
it is huge, especially when you actually, something that reminds me of, I personally really don't like it when I'm doing a long climb and there's a small downhill that comes up, because whilst it feels nice and there's relief, I feel like I just did all that elevation for nothing, and now I've got to do it all again.
Totally.
I don't know, do either of you have the same, do you understand where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah,
of course, especially after the second day of our bicycle trip.
Oh, fantastic. So you've crossed the Alps into Italy, I'm thinking, and no disrespect, Tommy, but all of a sudden you've just crossed a border into amazing coffee as well from France to Italy. So I don't know if you're coffee lovers, but
we are.
We are, yeah, definitely.
It just goes next level all of a sudden. But obviously then you're through Western Europe, and then a lot of your trip did take you made that decision to cross through Europe via the Balkan countries. What was it like travelling through there?
Yeah, it's interesting, because for me, at least, the Balkans countries, it's very close to France and to Italy, it's just the neighboring countries. So you see them on the map and you're like, it should be same as Italy. I don't know. It's so close. It shouldn't be like too much of a change. And Roxy neither. We haven't been to this country yet in our life, and cycling them, we felt like we actually missed something this whole time, because even though it's close, it has nothing to see with France, Italy, Spain. It's completely different. Completely different parts of Europe, with like his own history. So many smaller countries, each one having his own history, own past. And it's very, very interesting. And the culture shock as well was beautiful. Like, I remember, for example, we loved Montenegro, because same as always, we had no expectation at all about Montenegro. We just arrived without even looking at a picture on internet, nothing. And we just like fall in love with the Kotor Bay. And then after the Kotor Bay, which basically looks like Norway with those fjords, with those big cliffs, like 1,000-meter dropping into the sea. So that was like beautiful. And after that, we had to climb the Kotor Serpentine, which is like a very famous serpentine with 18 hairpins to get basically to the top of it. And we spent 2 more weeks in Montenegro in the national park.
Dormitory National Park.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then from there, when we spent in total 3 weeks in the nature and wildness of Montenegro, we crossed to Kosovo and we arrived to like a buzzing city. And with the first mosques, we met with the prayer calls, the big bazaar, a lot of noise, a lot of smell. It was incredible. Like we felt like we changed continents. I mean, and we were still in the Balkans and we were still in the middle of it. We still had like North Macedonia, Albania to go. And yeah, it was really a discovery for us to know this country and discover this country. It was amazing.
And something that you said there has really paused me in my tracks, because we so quickly describe that whole area of Europe, because you're right there, Tommy, when you're looking at it in the context of the world, it's a small space. But we always say, the Balkans, and we sort of tie it up as being one region, but there are so many small countries. And what you said there that struck me was they're different countries, but they're different. They have a different culture. They have different sights, different sounds, different feels about them. They're not one and the same. It's not like, I travelled through the Balkans and for that whole region each day I experienced the same things. It was totally different and you experienced that difference. I love that. It fills me with joy to hear it. I just really want to go on a trip.
Yeah, and the very good thing about Balkans country, as they are small, you can do every week one different country. So each time it's changed completely, like the way people speak or the food or everything is changing. So it's very stimulating,
It's so exciting to change country every week. You're like, next week we'll be in this country. We need to change menu. We need to learn how to say good morning.
Yeah, like basic words and like the price for things. And all those things, like the coffee is different in every country. You've got like their traditional coffee and the coffee pots they have. So you have to discover it all over again. And that's amazing. And it's a big contrast because further east you go and then the countries start to like stretch. Like you take Turkey. It took us like 2 months to cross Turkey. And then you've got Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. It's so big. And a lot of times it's that big that you have way less people, and it's very different.
And I imagine then when we talk about Turkey, because it is such a big country as well, I'm Australian, so I come from a very, very big country you're heading to. It's a continent, it's so big. But Turkey is quite large itself. And I imagine then the differences that you're experiencing. Am I right to think that as you cycled your way across Turkey over that 2 months, you started noticing changes within the country itself? Like, did the culture remain the same throughout the country, or were there slight changes that you're seeing as you were shifting your way across?
Well, I guess it depends as well which path you take through Turkey, because basically you've got 3 main paths popular for cycling. It's either you go north through the coastal road of the Black Sea, either you go south through the Mediterranean side and Kyrgyzstan, or either you take right in the middle, what we did, through Cappadocia and the Anatolian Plateau. And I would say that for us, for what we felt, the big difference was from Istanbul onward, like cycling, because there is a small part of Turkey west of Istanbul, which is, for us, seems like very westernized, like we were hosted by warm showers there. And it felt like really like the European lifestyle. And then Istanbul, of course, is like this very, very big city, multicultural, everything there. It's so beautiful. And from Istanbul to the east, for us, it was quite similar. I wouldn't say, after thinking about it, I wouldn't say it's a geographical change, but I would say it's more a generation change. We felt like being hosted by families. We felt the biggest difference in Turkey was between generation, like under 30 years old or under 35, 40 years old, and older than 40 years old, you can really feel like there is a big contrast between those two. There is like a crack dividing those two generations, with one generation being more conservative and respectful of the past, and definitely more conservative, and the new generation really wanting to go forward, to really like develop the country and looking really on the west side, like Europe and United States. So I wouldn't say, on my point of view, it's rather a generation contrast than a geographical one.
What an observation to be able to make as well. And I wonder, you wouldn't really get the benefit of having that sort of observation just being in one place in Turkey either, because that would just be an assumption you've made maybe from, speaking to one or two people. But when you travel a country and it takes you 2 months, you speak to enough people where that's what has stuck with you, is that generational change that you're seeing. Let's talk about shifting landscapes then, because your journey through Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan meant that you were all of a sudden going through, as you said, large countries still and desert landscapes. What was it like not being in an area that's built up with different types of landscape, but instead you're cycling along a flat horizon of deserts and that desert landscape? What was that like to experience?
I would say it was empty. The adjective I would use is empty, like it struck our mind like...
Yeah, from the first pedal stroke, we realized that there will be desert everywhere and it will be different, and especially after... So we had to take a plane from the capital of Iran, Tehran, to cross the Caspian Sea to arrive in Aktau in Kazakhstan. And as we were coming from Iran, we were surrounded by kind people every day, and we just arrived in the middle of nowhere with only camels and us and all this sand everywhere and this huge straight line. We were like, oh my god, that will be different from Iran. And we were like, okay, so let's hit the road.
And I would say, like, first when you arrive, you really think like it's empty, it's gonna be boring, it's gonna be nothing to see for the next 1,000 kilometers. But then slowly, it's like being in the dark, slowly you start to notice little things, and then you start to see those camels, you start to see those towers, the rocky towers, those colors, those little flowers. And you start to see everything from this environment, and everything makes you happy because obviously there is not much. So every little things you realize, wow, that's beautiful. Wow. And last but not least, the wild camping in the desert was really the highlight, because it's flat everywhere and you can put the tent everywhere. So it was like perfect.
It was so easy to find.
Cycling the whole day, like fighting against the wind. And then whenever you are tired, you just like stop wherever you want. You walk maybe 10 meters from the roads into like this flat desert, and you just pitch your tent here in the middle of nowhere, and it's perfect. That was really perfect.
Just that flat land. It's funny what things fill us with joy. The idea that, oh my gosh, I've just found somewhere flat to pitch my tent, and I can do that tomorrow as well and the day after. For people who've never camped before, oh my goodness, it's such an experience, isn't it? That first time when you're a new camper and you don't realise the importance of having flat ground, and you don't realise that until you've fallen asleep and woken up 30 minutes later with your head down at your feet trying to figure out where are you, what's going on in the dark, and why have I slipped down on this slope. Actually, Roxy, if I'm correct, I think I watched in one of your YouTube videos, you had a low moment on the trip with your sleeping mat deflating in the middle of the night. Was that in the desert as well?
That was definitely in the desert. It was several times in the desert. So I don't know what happened and why. Maybe I was inflated too much, because one day it's just like, something happened and I had no more air in my mattress. So I was like, okay, so every night we had to power water to repair it, but it didn't work. So it was like micro holes in my mattress, and we couldn't repair it. So it was such a struggle, but
and the not funny part of it is to find the holes in the mattress, you needed to pour water.
And
which
we did
is
have a
the
lot of
thing
water.
you can't find in the desert. So basically, we had to choose between having water or
Repairing
sleeping,
my mattress.
repairing the mattress. So that was a hard call.
I didn't even have that concept when I was watching your video, but of course water is such a scarce resource in the desert. You're not camels, you don't have a big hump on your back where you can have days within yourself to use. I guess at some stage though, because whilst you're thinking, oh, okay, the mattress is just comfort, it is actually also sleep, and sleep is something that we really need. And I can imagine you'd be waking up on a flat mattress. I know it's a pun, but it would have been so deflating. It would have just been. But from the deserts, then you cross the deserts and you come into a total different environment all of a sudden again, don't you? Because the mountains come back, and they come back in style, don't they, through Central Asia?
Yes, exactly. So the desert was really not a little thing. It was in total, it was 1,000 kilometers. So it took us a bit more than 3 weeks to cycle across it. So that was very long, and we had time to really, intense, really time to think about everything, every next step. And at the end of it, basically, we had to make a decision, because the thing is, conflict started between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan at this time, right at this time. So the border between both shut down, and it was impossible to cross from Tajikistan to Kyrgyzstan. So we knew that if we wanted to go to Tajikistan from Uzbekistan, we would have to go back to Uzbekistan before entering Kyrgyzstan. That's a lot of stan in a sentence, but basically, we couldn't cross from one country to the other. So we decided to do it anyway, and to cycle a loop in the Pamir area. But the landscape changed like from one day to another. It went from like perfectly flat where you could see 1,000 kilometers away to like those giants, like 1,000-meter, but like vertical with canyons and
It was directly with crossing the border with Tajikistan. It was like
right after we got the stamp, and after the stamp we cycled 100 meter, and they were like everywhere, and we were very happy to find them again. We're like, wow, that's gonna be beautiful, and we were looking forward to do some more mountain after 2,000 kilometers of flat and desert.
I guess it would have been re-energizing the inner mountaineers in both of you, having endured through the desert to all of a sudden arrived in a landscape. I think on your blog you mentioned about Tajikistan that 90% of this country is covered in 3,000 meter peaks. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine what a mountaineer would be feeling as soon as they enter and cross that frontier, especially after the desert. But what a great thing to have experienced those contrasts as well. I feel mountaineers would appreciate 3,000 meter peaks regardless, but I feel perhaps you've appreciated them even so much more having spent 3 weeks in a flat desert landscape prior.
Yeah, that's for sure. And for us, as we said before, it was contrast after contrast, from Iran and the hospitality, and it was all about the people. We didn't really have time to look at the landscape because we were hosted by so many people, kind people. Then we've been from that to the desert, where it was not about people because we were alone, and it was only about going through this desert and finding our limits, our mental limits. And then from that, going from perfectly flat areas to towering mountains and paths and very steep roads to climb. And it was, only contrast. So it was very beautiful. It's very inspiring when you are cycling and you realize this world is made of so many different landscape and things you are going through, and you really feel like you are moving forward, you are discovering the world. You are really going from a certain setup to another setup to, it's beautiful.
I think we would have loved to come back to Tajikistan to do entire Pamir Highway one day.
I've seen photos of other people I've interviewed of the Pamir Highway, and it's been, again, like Iran and its hospitality, the Pamir Highway comes up all the time as well as just one of those places you have to experience for yourselves. You'd need to leave so much time to discover it, Roxy and Tommy, because I don't think the mountaineers in you could possibly just cycle the Pamir Highway. I think you'd have to discover some of the mountains are all around you as well. What a place. What a place.
Yeah.
So I guess speaking of discovering mountains, Your plan for this trip was to spend the winter in Kyrgyzstan, to not have to endure cycling through those cold temperatures, but rather embrace your passion, which is mountaineering and ski touring. And you did this in Kyrgyzstan. You were able to pick up some ski touring equipment that you had stored there and swap your bikes for your ski touring equipment. And you were based in Karakol in Kyrgyzstan for 2 months to, I guess, fill up on this extra passion and pleasure that you have as well. What was that experience like there for those 2 months?
As you said, we arrived to Kyrgyzstan right on time because the last few days of cycling were very cold. We had to sleep at minus 15 degrees, so it was freezing cold. And the road starting to be icy and snow on the sides and everything. So we thought, all right, it's high time to swap gears and to leave the bikes and start the ski touring. So we had friends coming from France with our equipment. We left all our equipment in France, but packed, ready to go, because we knew someone would come to visit us at a point. So we had everything prepared, and we left the bike and started ski touring. The plan was to stay in Karakol. We found an old traditional
Kyrgyz house.
Kyrgyz house. Yeah, it was very, how to say that nicely, very
local, unique experience.
Basic?
Yeah, basics. Yeah, very basics. But it was fine for us. We knew we were spending the winter there, and it was a whole experience by itself. And then every day we were leaving the house anyway. We were not really staying at the house, and we were going out to the mountains and ski touring those big, beautiful mountains. It was a very unique experience to learn, because we are very, very good ski tourers back in France, but then you arrive here in another country, another continent, 1,000 kilometers from home, and you have to kind of learn again about the snow conditions.
Yeah.
It's different, and we loved it. We really loved it. And in total, we spent
4 months.
4 months. We arrived beginning of December in Bishkek,
And
where we left the bike.
we started by doing 2 weeks in Kazakhstan with our friends, and then we came back to Kyrgyzstan, and then we started like the 15th of December.
So yeah, at least 3-4 months in Karakol, and living like the people living
like
there.
Kyrgyz people.
Yeah, like Kyrgyz people.
My personal connection to Kyrgyzstan and Karakol is my bestest friend, who is in Australia now, but she's originally from Kyrgyzstan and Karakol was her home. And I knew that you were staying there and immediately thought of her so fondly. And I knew that she would be very interested in some of these responses. But I do want to, I guess, ask you a couple of questions there. She was asking, did you enjoy some local dishes from Karakol itself that apparently are only available in that part of Kyrgyzstan?
Yes.
Yeah. So almost every day, actually, we were eating in a local restaurant. So we tried local langman, which is like very fatty pasta with a lot of either cow or sheep meat with vegetables, but all very, very fat. And we tried plov, which was very...
But plov, it's more from Uzbekistan.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. But the thing is, with Karakol is one of the eastern city in Kyrgyzstan, and it's not too far from China, the Uyghur areas. So you've got a big influence of Uyghur culture, Uyghur food in this part of Kyrgyzstan. They've got some very local dishes which is Uyghur cuisine basically, and that is very famous for this area. And it was very good, but in general it was very fatty food and lot of meat. Like you have
every dish contains meat. You cannot get vegetarian options. It was so hard.
Yes.
And what about the people there in Kyrgyzstan as well? What was it like being amongst Kyrgyz people for 4 months?
It was very, very interesting, because in Kyrgyzstan, the thing is they start to pick up speed with the tourism, but it's mainly in summer. Summertime is a very high time for tourism. They've got a lot of horse riding, a lot of hiking, a lot of nature, outdoor sport and days out. But during winter, everything is a bit slowed down. They're struggling to get any tourists coming for the winter. They are living with what they saved from the summer, basically. We met a lot of Kyrgyz people who either worked with farming during summer, and in winter they were just keeping some animals in the farm. and few of them are working at a ski resort because there is a very old and funny ski resort above Caracal with like old French chairlifts that were brought
From France.
20 years ago from France. It's very funny because they left all the signs, in French, like be careful of the chairlift or whatever. And they left all those French signs there and nobody can read them actually. But yeah,
That's hilarious.
It's and everything is a bit, post-Sovietic. It's a very good vibe over there.
You would have had some fairly cold temperatures there through the winter as well, which obviously you need for the snow and for your ski touring. So, you see the benefits of that. But I imagine it would have been quite a cold winter too, no doubt.
We had weeks of minus 20 degrees, so the water in our house was freezing. It was very cold.
Yeah, and what struck us, for example, is a waterfall. So not far from Caracal, there is like the Bascun waterfall, which is, I don't know, maybe 500-meter river going down the mountain. It's a very big river going down. And it was that cold that the whole river froze from top to bottom. So it was a very, very beautiful ice fall all the way. It was impressive.
Yeah, so we were regretting not have our ice climbing equipment there. We were looking at this ice fall and we were like,
Next time.
I think we'll come back in Kyrgyzstan.
Another adventure to fill your boots on and to fill your soul with happiness there waits you in Kyrgyzstan for sure. I have to say, seeing your YouTube channel, the videos that you put up there of your time in Kyrgyzstan and actually throughout your trip, the amazing footage you've taken both with your cameras and your drone as well, the landscapes there, they're just absolutely incredible to see, and I definitely encourage our listeners to go and check them out as well. So Kyrgyzstan, your time there, your 4 months there, I wonder if it felt like it went quickly or not, but from there you had another border issue to tackle, which was the land border to China, and unfortunately, that posed a bit of a problem to you both as well, didn't it? And sort of, I guess, set you on a slightly different trajectory for your trip in how you've ended up, and how you ended up in Vietnam in Southeast Asia. Can you talk me through that for a little bit?
Yeah, so I would say one of the reasons of choosing Kyrgyzstan to wait in winter was as well to wait for China to open its borders. And so, yeah, we were waiting and losing our hope. And so actually it has opened the week where we were about to leave Kyrgyzstan. We have already had our plane ticket to skip China and go to Vietnam. And it turns out that it's opening like the same week. So we got so excited and frustrated at the same time. But we were like, okay, so let's just give it a try. So we went to the Chinese embassy in Bishkek to ask if there's a possibility. And we were told that, unfortunately, if we don't have 6 months residency in Kyrgyzstan, it's impossible to get a visa for China. So we were like, oh, why? I mean, it's unbelievable. So we were like, okay, so let's just try like online application. And yeah, it didn't want to let us in. It was so complicated. Like it was still closed for tourism anyway. So then we're like, okay, so let's try via Kazakhstan. So we called embassy in Kazakhstan, but they were speaking only Chinese. Even though I speak Russian, it was impossible to communicate. And yeah, we're like, oh my god, it seems impossible. And so we were asking ourselves if it's worth it. We already had our plane tickets and we didn't feel welcomed to enter this country. So
for listeners of the podcast, it turned out that it's actually impossible to get a tourist visa from any embassies in Central Asia.
To China, yeah. You need to do it in advance. Apparently, we heard that it's possible from Iran, which we weren't aware of. And anyway, we couldn't have done it because it was way too early for us. You need, after getting your tourist visa, you have like 3 months to get to the border. And in Iran, we were like in September, so it wasn't, and it was still closed at that time, so it was a bit deceiving. It was
it was a lot of emotion in 1 week, basically, because we bought the plane ticket because no news since 4 months. Then
out of the sudden, China opens, like the next morning, China was open. We were like, what the heck? I mean, how is it possible?
So we went to the embassy, and so we had our hopes up. We were ready to cancel the flight tickets, basically, and then we realized it was not possible. So after a week of
we let it go.
Moving everywhere and trying everything, we finally flew over China and arrived to Hanoi, so is our doorstep to whole Southeast Asia. It's on the top, let's say, northeast of Southeast Asia, so we have plenty of countries and kilometers to cycle all the way to Australia still, so we are not too disappointed. It's okay.
And I imagine also plenty of different cultures within those countries as well. I know you're in Laos at the moment, but you have come through from Vietnam. And I imagine just even crossing over from one country to the next there, perhaps you're noticing subtle changes in culture and perhaps even in food and in ways of life as well. What have those first few weeks in two different countries been like for you there?
I think we both agree that the shock is huge, especially when it comes to cuisine, climate, people, literally everything. I mean, we are like in cultural shock between Central Asia and Southeast Asia. Well, so far we have comparison from Central Asia and Vietnam, but yeah, like
Yes, it's really two
different worlds.
It's funny to think like just with one country, which is massive, which is China, but on both sides of the same country, you've got two different worlds. Yeah, it's the opposite. On the one side, it was cold and dry, and here it's wet and hot. We were a bit struggling with the food in Central Asia.
Here it's so easy. You can get vegetarian dishes everywhere, like on the road. It's safe to eat. There are a lot of healthy options. And in Central Asia, it was a bit struggle. Yeah, it's
the only real thing we regret for now about Central Asia, the facility to communicate, because Central Asia, all those countries, even though they've got like their own language, they all speak Russian. So meaning if you speak Russian, if you have good basics in Russian, you can communicate to everyone, everywhere, and any generation. Here, it seems every area, every country and every area has its own dialect, and it's not easy at all. We tried to learn we spent 1 month in North Vietnam, tried to learn a bit of Vietnamese, and it's at the end we realized like even with Google Translate
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah, it's a bit complicated.
Yeah.
So lots of body language and hand signs to get you through there.
Yeah, but the thing is that body language doesn't work that well here. It's not the same body language, they don't show the same things as we do, like to come here and have a dinner with me. It's not the same. Like, can we put up a tent? Like the manner of if we want to put up a tent and sleep, it's not the same. We've got a feeling that people don't understand us. It's very strange.
So it is a massive culture shock on all levels. You were talking about the weather there as well. What an extreme, because I know following you there on your Instagram, like you were hitting temperatures in the 40s or definitely the high 30s, and the humidity must feel like it's 100% when it's not pouring with rain. So, you're not getting that evaporative cooling effect when you're riding as well, because your sweat's just staying on your body. Like,
yeah,
it's a total different physical experience. And Roxy and Tommy, anecdotally, just in hearing about your story and just this brief chat we've had so far, thinking back to first setting off from the Alps and the experience of climbing mountains for the first time to, going through so many different countries through the Balkans, the hospitality of Iran, the vastness of Turkey, the nothingness of the desert, and then the mountains, the cold in Kyrgyzstan, all of a sudden, such another extreme and another experience that you've just been thrust into. I think it was when you entered through Laos, was it Laos or Vietnam, where you were told by another traveller to take advantage of spending some time to make a crossing on the boat, on the river there, as opposed to cycling through the roads?
Yeah, so it's a funny story again because
Laos,
it was in Laos. So yeah, we were given a piece of advice of a guy, of a cyclist fellow on Instagram. Oh, by the way, if you're going this direction, you can take this local boat, which allows you to skip the very mountainous part, like 3 days of sweating in the mountains, and you can just take this boat 4-hour ride. And you're like, wow, that's a great advice. Let's try it. And that was a great advice. It was first time in our trip that we were taking a boat, and so it was a bit of struggle because we had to take off all our bags, had to fit our bicycle in the skinny boat. So it was...
The boat, for the listeners, the boat is less than a meter wide.
It's a long boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine, and you would be thinking like putting your big heavy bikes on it as well. Like, it would be,
Yeah.
oh, but what an experience.
We thought we were heavy players, and then when we stopped at a fisherman's village, someone embarked on the boat with a scooter, like a motorbike. And then we realized that...
That's next level.
Yeah, exactly. We realized like 2 bikes is really not a problem at all.
Players.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. And I suppose there that the rainfall that you've experienced in your time there as well, some of those roads would be quite interesting to traverse. I imagine you've encountered some real muddy tracks along the way as well to endure through.
So far, we haven't
had any rainfall so far. We had like only...
Yeah, we had some...
But not huge rain. So the rain season hasn't started yet. We still have like 1 week left. So yeah, so far we don't really know how it's gonna be next week, so we cannot really tell. So far we had only scorching heat and high temperatures.
But we cycled some very, very dusty, not mud, but very dusty tracks, and we thought, wow, if rains get into this, then it's impossible. Like, we struggled so much for 20 kilometers of dusty gravel roads, and we thought if you add some rain on top of that, then it's done. Like, you cannot do anything. You just like wait until it dries and then continue. I mean,
so many adventures wait in front of you, but again, no expectation, no deception. Let's see where this trip takes you.
That's true.
Look, Roxy and Tommy, I'm sure people are going to be listening to this interview and want to actually see what you've done in the past and actually what you're doing at the moment. How can our listeners follow along with your adventure? How can they find out more about you as well?
Well, we developed a real passion for sharing our journey. Actually, it's now a big hobby we have. So we share it through every possible way. So we have written stories on our website. Then we've got some videos of our trip on the YouTube channel, and on a daily basis we post some stories and nice pictures on Instagram. So yeah, for everything you are interested in, being videos or
photographs or stories, or even we are very eager to give any advice as well. So if anyone wants to contact us for anything as well,
specific advice,
specific cycling advice or caracol advice.
Absolutely, and I know that your tag or your name for the both of you, it's Roxy and Tommy on the road. So I will definitely be sharing links to all of your accounts and channels there in the show notes for our listeners. I have thoroughly enjoyed trawling through your trip and your channels and brushing up on my French language skills watching some of your YouTube videos as well. It has been it's filled me with wanderlust, as has this conversation. Sadly, this conversation is coming to a close, but I do like to finish off with the same 2 questions. And that is the first one: if you have the choice of having to cycle through a constant headwind or cycle up a constant climb, which one would you choose? You go first, Roxy.
So I think the choice of our itinerary reflects the answer. Every time, if we have a choice, we go through mountains. Like, from the departure in France, we choose to go through the pass instead of going by the south. And then we do the loop in Tajikistan. We went through mountains in Turkey. The answer is pretty obvious for me. I know that for Tommy it's the same.
Yeah, definitely. And I would add, like, sometime by not planning the way, the good thing about it is you don't have really to choose, you just like take what comes, if you have to cross. You want to go to the next country, you have to cross some part where it's going to be windy, you take it. You have to cross some part where it's mountainous and climbs, and you will take it as well. So yeah, the beauty sometimes is to not do too much research, and you just see what comes and live it.
I feel, interviewing 2 intrepid mountaineering adventurers, if you didn't choose mountains in this question, there would be some hard detective work in questioning about this. What has changed you? So my last question. Now, I feel this answer should be an obvious one, but maybe it changes for you both at certain stages of the trip. But if you give the choice of cycling for 4 hours one day, would you rather cycle on your own or would you cycle with company?
Yeah, that's very obvious for me, because as we could heard in previous podcasts we made with solo travelers, a lot of times they are regretting to not be able to share their daily adventure, and I feel like it's one of the most important aspects is every minute you live your adventure to be able to share it with someone, and it's even better when it's your loved one, so you can share it to the fullest.
That's the right answer, Tommy. That's his way of saying that he would go for bike touring with me again. So.
Oh, brilliant. Because actually, I have 2 bonus questions, actually. Sometimes I pull these on guests. This tour is by no way over. You've got a long way to get to Australia. And depending on when you get to Australia is a big country in itself to explore. But beyond that and your year to come in Australia as well working, do you think that this is a way of travel that you would continue on with?
It's possible, yeah. I mean, at least as you said, we still have 6 months to go to reach Australia, because it's down south, but it's far down south. And then we are not yet in Australia, but we are already planning like side trips to New Zealand by bike touring or bikepacking, and yeah, maybe like Tanzania and things like that. So yeah, definitely. I mean, it's for us. We did a big trip in the past hitchhiking, and we realized hitchhiking is very good, but sometimes you miss big parts when you do, for example, 200, 300, 400 kilometers a day when you hitchhike. While cycling, you do every meter of it, so you see everything you have to see. You see it, and the hard parts, the easy parts, the good parts, the bad parts, everything. So definitely bike touring will stay a way of traveling, the favorite way of traveling for us, that's for sure.
It's not our last trip.
It's not even finished yet.
I love it. And I guess that leads into my next cheeky question, and that is, you do still have 6 months of this trip remaining. And as a host, how could I not ask the question of, perhaps when you're in Australia, I would so welcome the opportunity to interview you about the following 6 months that's up ahead of you, and to share the highlights of Southeast Asia and Australia as well. So I'd love to be able to do that if both of you are keen.
With huge pleasure, yeah, definitely.
That's a deal. Maybe we'll have some Australian accents as well.
Look, if you want me to teach you some words and some sayings, by all means. Roxy and Tommy, it has been an absolute pleasure hearing you both share your story about this trip, about your insights. I love the saying, no expectation, no deception. May you have no expectations for the road ahead. May you have amazing experiences only, a tailwind at your back, and may those climbs come with an amazing descent that just fills you with smiles. Thank you so much for being guests on the Seek Travel Ride podcast, and I wish you well on your future trips.
Thank you so much, Bella, for inviting us. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed that chat with Roxy and Tommy, and hearing more about their bicycle adventures and their mountaineering adventures too. And just a little update for you on the road. So I spoke to both of them while they were in Laos, exploring that beautiful country. They have since travelled through Laos and are now back in Vietnam. And I wish them all the best for their future adventures. Now, if you're enjoying the podcast, make sure that you're following us on your favourite podcast player so that you get notified when every new episode drops. And if you feel like giving me a rating and review to let me know how you're liking the show, I'd really appreciate that. As always, if you want to share your own bicycle adventure story with our listeners, please reach out to me, send me an email, podcast@seektravelride.com, and get in touch to find out about how you can be interviewed as a guest for the show. Also, are you on Instagram? Then be sure that you're following us. Our handle there is @seektravelride. I bring you more details about our guests, episodes, and also some cycling inspiration in a photographic format. Until the next episode, my name's Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.